there. This week I have a 2-photo page that I want to do. I have some photos that we took last fall, and I've already scrapped some of the things that went on that day, but I wanted to talk about the fact that I'm not afraid of heights. Because it's sort of a running thing between my husband and I. He doesn't care for high spaces. They don't bother me. On the other hand, he likes to go out on the water if he gets an opportunity, and I get seasick on a ferry. So just a little contrast between the two of us, but he'd snap these photos of me, and this is really not that high. Okay, you know, it's overlooking a waterfall, but it's not that high. So anyway, I'm going to do these 2 photos on this layout, and I'm using arrows for my embellishment since I'm doing a height kind of theme. I've got quite a bit of pattern paper here intersecting, so let's look at that first. The collection I have is from Simple Stories. This is their, what's it called? Harvest Lane collection, and I know that I want these 2 strips to be either a stripe or something with some pattern to pull all my colors together. So I'm considering this stripe. There's a wide stripe in there too, but I liked this one. And I like this pattern as well. Maybe just a little bit of it cut up, I think would be a great way to tie the colors together. Then I need 2 main colors to go behind my photos. And I've gone through the papers and I have 4 choices. Let's see which ones look the best with the photos. These are ones that I have enough left, and they're solid enough. I don't want something with a lot of white. I want something that's just tone on tone. So, looking at the papers, I really like that one. I don't think I want the teal. I think this green. I think these 2 will be the papers that I want to go for the photos. And one of these on the back, this is it, has some journaling lines. So I'm going to use this for the journaling block, and I'll show you how I print journaling on pattern paper. Now, I haven't picked out any thickers yet for my title because I don't know what my title is going to be. I've got a couple of ideas, so I don't know if it's going to be a long title or a short title, and that'll determine the thickers. And also I needed to kind of narrow down my paper choices here to see what color I want to use for the title. So I'll get to that. The embellishments, the arrows are laying on top of a round kind of embellishment so I can sort of cluster some things together. I like the idea of using the wood embellishments from Studio Calico. I love these, and they're going to go with this nature, outdoorsy kind of theme. I have these round ones, but I also thought about, for the base of the round part, using some stamps. And I keep a whole basket full of stamps that coordinate with my punches, either my round punches, heart punch, scallop punches, and so forth. So I have this that works with that large scallop punch, or I have this set, and one of the elements is a fall image. I wouldn't want to use the bird in the middle, but having these leaves and round, and then having the other embellishments laying over the top, that might look pretty for the embellishment cluster. So those are my ideas so far. So at this point I'm going to get my papers down and my photos in place, and then I can start adding the other embellishments. I think that these long strips here need a little bit more width to them, and to me they're a little bit lost on this background, so I wanted to add a border. There wasn't a brown with this collection, or not that I purchased, but there is from Lily Bee. The Autumn Spice collection coordinated really well with Simple Stories, and so I bought a few pages of it, and I have these brown strips that I cut. I tried using Distress inks, and it just wasn't enough, but I think when I add these in, this will be a nice addition. I'll tuck them under there a little bit for that. So I think those will add a nice contrast edge. And I need to put this underneath the green side. I'm actually going to split it because there's some blue over here on the side. I don't really want that blue. That doesn't really match anything, but these colors do. So rather than getting hidden, I'm going to cut it here and then tuck the end over on this edge. Just adding a little bit of Tombow adhesive to hold this in place, since it was kind of an afterthought to put that in. And then this one. Trim the rest of that off neatly when I pick up the paper. Okay, now I'm ready for some journaling. And the journaling is going to fit in this area here. I have typed up my journaling. First I looked at the paper that I was going to use, and I measured my space, and I had enough room for about 1.5 inches of this journaling paper, and that was 6 lines of ledger that I could use. So I typed up my journaling and worked out 6 lines of journaling that went over about 4 inches wide. I typed what I wanted, and that came out really great. However, it doesn't quite match the lines on my paper. It never does the first time through. I just used the default settings for Word, and that's a spacing of 12 points for this particular font and point size, and that's not going to line up on the lines. You can see this on the camera. It's going to end up being too high, and some of the lines are going to be printed over top of the marks on the journaling paper. So I want to spread it out some. And this is a bit of a trial and error. And after you've done it a few times, you kind of learn how much spacing you need to add. As I say, this was 12 point, so I needed it to move a little bit. I needed all of this to take up about 1 more line than what it's taking up now. So I tried 16 point, and it's cutting out great. I'm not really going for perfect, but I want it to be pretty much within the border. So it looks like each of these lines is going to print exactly on one of the ledger lines, just like it were typed there. So now I'm ready to cut a piece of ledger and run it back through the printer. Okay. Here's my ledger paper. It's a little bit big, but that's okay. I'll trim it down when I get the final print out there. And I want this to line up again on the lines. So the way I do it is I take a ruler and I just draw some lines across here in pencil. It doesn't have to be every single one, just enough to use for a guide. And then I'm going to use some removable adhesive. And position my ledger so that the lines line up with the ones that I've marked. And that way I'll know that my print is going to end up in the right place. Now some paper you can hold it up to the light and see how it's going to print. Other papers like this one are just too thick and you can't tell until you run it through and print it. So let me send this through the printer and we'll see how it comes out. Okay, everything printed where I wanted to. So my text is printed right on the lines, and I'll just take this off and trim it down and it'll be ready to go on the layout. Okay, using this stamp from Stampin' Up, I'm going to do a technique that I did on a card a few months ago, and I really liked it. I'm going to stamp, I'm going to ink it with 3 different colors of ink, and I've picked 3 from Stampin' Up that match my paper, starting with the lightest color ink. And then moving to the next darkest. And just continuing around the stamp so these sort of blend together. And finally the Riding Hood red ink, a little bit of that one. Okay. And I'm not too worried about the middle because I'm going to end up covering up the middle of this. And that gives me a pretty image that I can cut out in a circle and use that embellishment on my page. And I'll keep doing those three colors. It is important to clean the stamp between stampings so you don't contaminate your ink pads with some of the other colors. You sure wouldn't want to get that red ink on your more mustard ink pad. Okay, now I have my 3 different embellishments that are going to go on my page, and I want to see what I want to add to them. Obviously, I need to cover up the center, and I've got some ideas for that. I have these little round embellishments that came from Studio Calico that I may use, and put some pattern paper or something in the middle, in between them. That's a possibility. Now another possibility for the centers is I have this paper that I used as a strip, and it's circle elements. All I did was punch out one of them to see how that looked. So that's a possibility, is to punch some of those out, and I kind of like that rather than having something so small in the center. So I'm going to do a couple of different arrangements and lay them on the page without gluing everything down, and just see which ones I like the best. I know I'm going to add some of the arrows. Oops, all my stars. I know I'm going to add some of the arrows to this, since that's a big part of my theme of the page. And I'll probably end up coloring some of these because they're not going to show up very well unless I do. And I usually just color them with a marker. Okay, it's becoming obvious really fast that I like the embellishments I cut out of the paper as opposed to these little round wood embellishments. I think they're just a little bit small, and they make it look almost like a bullseye rather than having something where I can layer on top of it better. The other thing that's kind of surprised me is I thought they would need a mat. Like this one I matted, but I think I like them better without the mat. I'm going to be adding some ribbon and stuff to them, and the mat just seems to make them a little bit too, I don't want to say perfect, but too structured or something. So anyway, making some decisions. Okay, I did end up using that mustard colored circle, and I added it to this embellishment along with another reddish rust color, because I had so much, once I got my title in, I decided on a long title, and it and this embellishment put so much weight on this side of the page that I needed to balance it. So I put these mats on this embellishment to give a little more weight down here. And I'm going to do a little bit more as well to soften these. I've added some twine across the whole page to kind of tie it together and soften it a bit, and I'm going to soften it a little bit more with some ribbon and some washi tape, and so these aren't quite just so round and I guess they're circles, they're supposed to be round, but I feel like they need tying into the page a little bit more. So I'm going to try a few little trims. Let's see, I have some of this green. So I'm going to play with a few of these, and I'm using a mixture of washi tape and ribbon because I didn't have all of one versus the other. I had some colors that I had in washi tape and some colors that I had in ribbon to go with this, and I think the combo will work nicely. So I want that underneath. I don't know, maybe a little bit on top. So I'm going to play with those a little bit. The other thing that I'm going to do to complete the page and to kind of bring everything together is the mist. And I've shown this in other videos where I make samples of my mist on acetate sheets, and then I can get an idea of how it will look. You don't know for sure until you've put it actually on the paper. But this is a very dark mist from Studio Calico, and I think that's definitely too dark. A closer color is probably this Manila. I like this. I think I'm going to start actually with the clay color. It's about the same color as the background. It may not show up. If it doesn't show up, then I can always go darker, because you definitely can't take mist off. So those are the things I'm going to do to finish up the page. Okay, I was doing my mists, and it was one of those, I should have quit while I was ahead. I did the clay, it looked really good, but it was a little light, so I decided to add the manila. And when I was working with the manila, I got this drop up here that I wasn't too happy with, so I went to mop it up, and I accidentally poured the bottle onto the lower part of my layout. So here's the lesson from this. It's not to forget about mists. They're wonderful. It's, of course, to be more careful with them, but you can fix anything. So I've cut some more of this paper, and I'm just going to glue another piece on top of this, and I'll probably splatter a couple of the clay drops on here so it'll look natural, and hopefully I'll have enough to cover this top area. If I don't, that's not the end of the world, but that's what I'm going to do to finish it, and then we'll take a look at the final layout. Okay, crisis averted. I have taken some additional pattern paper that matched this and did a couple of little splatters on it to make it fit in with everything else and glued it over the top of what was there. I had one spot where I had a bit more mist than I wanted of that second mist, so I added some washi tape over here, and I like that look along with this embellishment cluster. So let's take a look at the sketch that I started with. My two photos and the long strips of paper behind them with the intertwined strips underneath. I added some additional strips on the side just to widen this a bit and give it a little bit of definition. The three embellishment clusters I'm real pleased with. This one I made a bit larger to balance the heavy amount of stuff on the left side of the page with a longer title than I thought I might have had at the beginning, and this embellishment cluster over here. We did the journaling on the ledger paper, and if you'll check out my blog, there'll be a copy of the sketch in a PDF file and some details about the layout. Thank you for watching.